my favorite song.
You're so good. Yeah, they built this. How long?
I have a problem. I cannot seem to ever do the easy version of something. I would love to be satisfied just doing something cool but simple and straightforward for once, but it seems I am not physically capable of this. Hi, my name is Allie Katz. If you're new here, I make, invent, and create things, usually somewhere outside my comfort zone. I'd love to make things easier on myself one day, but it seems that day is not today. It seems instead that today is the day I commit to making an over-the-top bass guitar prop for my Marceline from Adventure Time cosplay. Today is also July 7th, and that means I have less than 2 months before one of the biggest nerdy conventions in the world, DragonCon, which I will be attending. I basically need to have started yesterday, and there's exactly 0 time to waste, so let's get right to it. I love cosplay. I've been doing cosplay most of my life, and for me, the making part of it is just as much fun as the wearing part, if not more so. I definitely get carried away with the props, but who cares if the end result is so cool? Marceline's axe is a prop that has been made many times before, and made well. Folks have even made actual working bass guitars that look identical to Marcy's. That's a worthy endeavor, but I can't play a bass guitar. Or any guitar. I can, however, make something that plays music. With this. I reckon that if I can't put on a real performance, I might as well do an incredible fake one. And if I'm already using a Raspberry Pi 5 to do it, I might as well really go all out with it. The outside will, for all intents and purposes, look like Marceline's axe, complete with real bass guitar hardware and a working knob. Yes, I'll be using real hardware where I can. There's no denying that the upfront cost is higher than if I just printed these parts, but even if you ignore all the post-processing and material costs, time is probably my most valuable resource here. So, real hardware it is. For the 3D printed parts, I'm going to give Polymaker's Cos PLA a go. It's supposed to be more lightweight than PLA, and easier to sand, and since there's going to be a lot of sanding, this is the perfect project to try it out on. Inside the body of the base will of course be Raspberry Pi and speakers, which will connect up to buttons in the neck that will trigger Marceline's songs. But at the back will also be a secret touchscreen display, hidden behind sliding panels when not in use. Why the hidden screen? I mean, obviously because it's cool, but it also opens up the ability to play literally anything I want via Spotify or YouTube, well beyond the songs assigned to the buttons. I want to take full advantage of what the Pi 5 has to offer. So, let's have all the music. Assuming, of course, that I can find a good set of speakers and touchscreen that will work with the Pi 5. The good news is I found this really great, relatively low-profile touchscreen display that works with the Pi 5. The Pi just mounts to the back and plugs directly into the display with these custom connectors. And thankfully, it all just works. For the speakers, I found these off-the-shelf 6-watt USB-powered beasties, which I can just plug into the 3.5 jack on the monitor. The main problem thus far is that the new Raspberry Pi 5 wants a whopping 5 amps to power it, and that's pretty much impossible in a portable form factor without making a custom battery pack. The good news is that it absolutely will run on less than 5 amps, meaning I can use this extra beefy battery pack. I just can't power the speakers through the Pi itself, because the speakers claim to want 2 amps of their very own, and at the very least want more power than the Pi is happy to provide. Everything in this project is so power hungry. Fortunately, it looks like I can trick the Pi into thinking it's getting full power, which increases the output to the USB. Now that everything is happily powered and copacetic, I can disembowel the speakers for its sweet sound-making innards. Much better. Preparing the buttons and getting the programming set up to play the songs is next. I feel like I'm always inclined to save the programming for last, but that's just because I don't really like doing it. Thankfully, the programming is about as simple as it comes for this. I've put the songs I want to play on the local drive for the Pi, and using the Pi GPIO library, I'll create a Python script to run on startup that allows the buttons to trigger the songs. If you're new to Raspberry Pi as a platform, it has these pins at the back that allow you to connect things directly to the Pi's various functions. I use the same GPIO pins in my Beam Octoprint build to create the buttons that would control my 3D printer. Nice. got this all working though, I'm feeling a bit underwhelmed by it. Like, it's okay, but I can't help but feel like the sound could have a bigger impact, and I have a hard time saying no to my sudden impulses. After a bit of research, I found the Dayton Audio brand of speakers and boards. Not only do they have the potential for so much more sound, but Dayton also do a complementary battery board, which means the whole thing can run portably, and I won't need to worry about the speaker's power needs. Is it better? It's definitely better. Of course, it'll sound better still when the speaker is properly enclosed. I should probably get on with the design. There are a lot of things to print. When it comes to designing a large piece like this from scratch, I like to try and break things up into sensible chunks and attack them one at a time, usually in order of how likely it is to fail when I print it. But of course, it all has to start somewhere. Given the relatively wobbly relationship that Adventure Time has with specifics, I had to guess at dimensions a bit when I sketched out the main shape. The design was relatively straightforward, minus the fact that pretty much every surface is curved. The sweep tool was very much my friend for this design. The most complex mechanical part of this project is the sliding door mechanism at the back to hide the touchscreen. Due to internal size restrictions, I had to split the panel into two pieces, and it was important to me that the panels moved together regardless of how they moved. My original idea had the panels moving in opposite directions and relied on a pulley system to open the bottom panel when the top panel was moved. But it kind of failed to work in both directions, and I couldn't come up with a better approach without seriously complicating the whole system. There are certainly lots of ways this could be accomplished, but time is a key factor here, and I need it to just work. My favorite solution in the end was to make the panels latch onto each other so they move in sync, like those telescopic sword toys, only simpler and with less risk of somebody getting their eye poked out. I made insets for magnets to help keep the panels either open or closed, and a slot to slide the panels into the body for installation. If I wasn't planning on painting everything, I could have attempted something print in place, but that would make painting the whole thing a lot harder. As expected, there were a plethora of issues with the first print. That I was able to go back into Fusion to quickly address. Version 2 worked much better. There were a few final things to fix, but I am happy to go without a third test and just assume it'll work as intended on the final print. The rest of the design felt a lot more straightforward, thankfully. I had to plan attachments for the electronics, a proper airtight enclosure for the speakers, and panel mounts for the power ports. I also made sure that I had access to everything by utilizing lots of screw mounting points. The neck was designed to slot into the body, with a pogo port connecting the buttons to the rest of the electronics and magnets holding the whole thing in place. To avoid potential disaster, I planned for two metal tubes to run along the interior of the neck and into the body. Why? Because they're cheap, light, and will add a ton of strength and stability to the neck while also giving it a better connection with the body. Of course, everything is going to be broken up into chunks because it's all way too big to fit on any of my printers. Yeah, this is going to take a while. Let's speed things up a bit. Hey! I'm sorry to interrupt this montage, but we don't have time to watch these prints finish. There's way too much work to do. Even though the front of the body is still printing, I've got all the pieces of the neck and back panel here, so I need to start down the long path of assembling, cleaning up, and prepping everything for paint. I tried to make it as easy as possible for myself when it comes to combining prints by including alignment pins in the design. They aren't strong or super stable, but that isn't the point here. They just need to line up the pieces to be glued together. That's it. To actually attach the pieces that need a permanent hold, I use a combination of chemical welding, i.e. this plastic model glue that effectively melts the plastic together, and plastic welding. Plastic welding is really just a fancy way of saying I take a hot thing and melt the plastic together, sometimes adding extra bits of plastic along the way. Of course, for the neck, I don't need alignment pins, as I have the slots for those metal tubes that I plan for in the design stage. They are my alignment pins, more or less. And since I want the tubes to be permanently attached to the neck, it's fine if they get glued in. Since the fretboard pieces are so thin, I just made holes for tiny pieces of wire to act as alignment pins. Once the front body pieces are done printing, I'll repeat the process with them. The only difference there is I had to break the model into 6 pieces instead of 4 because it was that hecking big. After the glue has dried and plastic has hardened, there's nothing left to do but a whole lot of sanding. Cue the sanding music. Oh my god, it's so much bigger than I thought it was going to be. Ah! I almost forgot to mention, I'm using a ton of threaded inserts on this build, and I like to add them in after I've done the roughest of sanding, but before I finish up and get to painting. I am using pretty much the best threaded inserts out there, made by 3D printing expert Stefan of CNC Kitchen. They have their own perfectly sized soldering iron tips for insertion, and I honestly cannot recommend them enough. Using threaded inserts means I can rely on screws to attach things instead of glue or other more permanent methods, which is kind of preferred when dealing with electronics and the like. Once everything is pretty smooth, I like to use a sandable filler primer to help get everything to a good paintable finish. That said, there always seems to be just a bit more sanding. And maybe some more priming too, just for good measure. Of course, no project would be complete without making some sort of totally avoidable mistake along the way and needing to redo things. I left all of my prints outside in the sun after spraying that black primer coat and returned to find some of the thinner pieces warped and misshapen from the heat. It's almost like the sun is hot or something. I did my best to reshape the warped prints with my heat gun and some pressure, but yeah. Some things would take more time to fix than it would just, I don't know, doing them all over again. So I guess I'll be doing that instead. BRB, I gotta go do some sanding. Eventually, when the sanding gods have had their pound of flesh, it's finally time to paint. I could use my airbrush to paint this, but given its size and lack of complexity, I opted instead for Montana Gold spray paint. It's highly pigmented, and I can choose the cap that best suits my paint job. It makes fast work of painting, and goodness knows I need as much fast as I can get. Turns out that it works pretty great for extra details as well. I considered going ultra glossy for the top coat on this, as that's what's on most real guitars, but instead opted to lean more into the stylized cartoony look. Satin sits nicely between a gloss and a matte, and I think it'll work nicely here. The end result may not be the ultra crisp professional paint job I would have liked, but all things considered, it ain't half bad. Yeah, this looks great, but DragonCon is just a week away now, so I need to get this across the finish line, like now. Now that everything is painted, tight-fitting pieces are a little too tight. Which of course means I'm back in the sanding pit once more, stripping back paint where it's not needed. For the most part, it wasn't too bad, except for the parts where the pickups are supposed to sit, which I apparently just did not size correctly at all. Not only did I have to strip back the paint, but I had to grind into the wall of the print as well to finally make the milled aluminum pieces fit. When the pickups did finally fit, I was left with a pretty messed up surface, so I decided to cover the inside with matte black paint to hide my sins. Note to self, revisit design on this part. Proto boards needed to be assembled and soldered up as well in preparation for final electronics wiring. As someone who's been a bit spoiled by custom PCBs, I don't think I fully appreciated before now just how much effort has to go into creating a functional proto board. No traces means a lot of wires connecting everything. Thank goodness it's only tactile switches here and not something more complicated. All the wiring for the buttons gets connected to these magnetic pogo pin connectors, which sit flush at the base of the neck. The corresponding connectors live in the main body, with the idea being that they meet once the neck is inserted into the body of the axe. We'll come back to that. Audio boards can finally get screwed into their standoffs within the body of the axe, as well as the speakers and the associated components. The toggle switch for the amp board and the volume potentiometer just fit into their respective slots, with thin nuts holding them in from the other side. Before the Pi gets tucked in all nicely, the speakers still need their enclosures sorted though. I printed these kind of ugly speaker enclosures in PETG, mostly because they need to be sturdy, not pretty. I'm lining them with a bit of Dacron, aka polyester wadding, to provide extra sound dampening behind the speaker driver. And then the whole thing gets slotted in and sealed around the edges. The idea is to make it airtight to improve sound quality. Whether or not I actually achieve this though is anyone's guess. Now the Pi can get added in. These standoffs get glued into place since they don't really need to come out again, and the frame sits on top with the touchscreen and the Pi. The whole assembly attaches to the frame with screws. Now that the Pi is situated, I can figure out how long my wires need to be to reach the magnetic connectors. I can also install the panel-mounted USB-C power cable. I've been putting off installing the side panels for the touchscreen because they are easily one of the most finicky parts of this build. I really can't put it off anymore. They have to fit just right or don't work. Both falling out and getting stuck are not an option here. Thankfully, all my prior fiddling and fussing seems to have paid off, and they only took a small amount of convincing to fit into the slots. I did have to sand back a bit of material, and I realized that you could see the inside a bit too much for my liking, so I opted to paint the inner edges black as well. From here, it's just the final embellishments and assembly. Frets and detailing get glued into the fretboard, machine heads get screwed into place, as well as the bridge. Pickups are secured, volume knob, strap buttons, check, check. Assembly is mostly a lot of screws and magnets, allowing for later disassembly when needed. But right now, I just need everything to fit together. It's 2 days before I leave for Dragon Con, but it's okay, because it's done. You know what that means. It's showtime. The axe was a total hit. It looked amazing, and I received countless flyby compliments based on appearance alone.
Do you have a favorite Adventure Time song?
But the best part? Showing off what it could really do.
I like this one.
Not only did the axe work as intended, it sounded great, even in the loud halls of the convention. And if that wasn't enough, nobody was expecting a secret touchscreen on the back.
Secret touchscreen.
But honestly, you deserve more than poorly recorded audio on hastily shot video from a convention to see how well it works. Of course, love to play more of the songs for you, but you know how it goes. YouTube. As you can tell though, the stop button works nicely, and the variety of songs.
Slow dance with you. I just wanna slow. I know we'll never grow together.
It's pretty satisfying. Of course, the secret touchscreen continues to be delightful. And with actual working internet, Spotify is usable and turns the axe into a fully functional boombox. Somehow, in spite of an intense time crunch, a physically large build, and increasingly complex audio, I managed to get the axe finished and functional in time for Dragon Con. And that feels really good. The axe also passed the travel test with flying colors. Breaking it down for travel, including lithium and battery removal, was a total breeze, and putting it together was barely more hassle than taking it apart. I am smitten. That means I can travel with it more, and that means that if you didn't get to see it in person at Dragon Con, you may yet get the chance to do so. At the moment, I am definitely bringing it to Hackaday SuperCon 2024, as well as the Sanjay Mortimer Rep Rap Festival later this year. If you're gonna be there, you can totally check it out up close and personal. In the meantime,
This baby is going up on my wall and will bless me with sweet tunes whenever I want, because I built an awesome speaker prop and nobody can stop me. As always, a huge thanks to my patrons for supporting these builds. They are awesome and help keep me going even when I'm spending 8-hour days sanding my fingers off. An additional huge thanks to everyone who showed the accent I love at DragonCon. Y'all really made the hard work worth it. I mean it. Thank you. What's next for this nerdy little maker? Hard to say, but I foresee more ridiculous cosplay mixed with electronics and weird techniques in my future. If that sounds like your bag, make sure you're following me both here and on social media. In the meantime, stay excellent, stay curious, and as always, keep creating.